Let's see here. Thanks everybody for coming. Actually, I'll face you towards the peoples. Hello. There we go. Something like that.
Right there.
Yeah. So today is November 6th. We're here in Atlanta, and we're gonna have Bobby Rodrigo walk us through blockchain and voting. As a lot of people are probably out voting today. I see also a lot of voting stickers, so good for you guys. And Bobby, I asked him to do this presentation because as far as, civil liberties, the Constitution, and sovereignty, and knowing about human rights in general, he's probably one of the most well-known and well-spoken people on the subject. So I figured he'd be the best one to talk about this subject. He's also well-versed with blockchain technologies and the impact and the power that it brings for that tool. So my name is Randall Lee Pyers. Thank you all for coming tonight. This will be out here later too on the cloud. I'll post a link later. And yeah, we meet the first Tuesday of every month. Next month, we're going to be in Alpharetta. It'll be a blockchain on the supply chain. Especially
That's directly applicable to the startup I'm working
on.
Yeah, that motor is a supply chain startup.
And they have a working supply chain on the blockchain solution that's like DoD military grade, literally taking care of the Javelin missiles for Raytheon. So
we'll
talk about that one next.
We actually literally are talking about exactly that.
So let's talk after this.
Okay.
And for now, Bobby, take it away. If you want to give a little background about yourself, that's cool. And then it's your show.
How's everybody doing tonight? Appreciate you.
Fantastic.
Thank you for the introduction, Randall. It's happy to be doing this presentation for the Global the Government Blockchain Association. I'm actually one of the advisors on your National Tax Forum, and I only mention that because I want people to know that it exists, so they know that they can come and get information in the taxation and compliance aspect of blockchain, cryptocurrency in general as well. The Government Blockchain Association is very informative and tries to expand the educational model of blockchain and cryptocurrency out there as well as anyone. As far as a little background on me, I sit on a number of American Bar Association committees as a legal professional. I also have a radio show called I Take Liberty with My Coffee. I do try to pay attention and advocate for a number of aspects of our lives that involve civil liberties. I am certainly a lover of decentralization and empowerment, which is basically the basis of cryptocurrency and the Satoshi model originally, of course, and blockchain, and I consider blockchain the anti-force and in the world, and it's certainly one of the aspects of our lives that's there in technology that is changing the world. So thank you for having me, and we'll dive right in. As everybody knows, we have been pounded, maybe even more so than any other time in my lifetime, and I've been around since JFK. Not voting, of course, but I've been around since JFK, and I've been paying attention to elections and things for a long time, politics. I've been an advocate working in politics for a very long time. And I would have to say that the voting aspect of our lives has been prominent more so in the last 6 years, particularly the last 4 and certainly the last 2, than any other time in my life. And that has to do, of course, with the allegations of the hacking that's going on, because there's a lot of fear in technology as well. And whether or not things were hacked, is open to interpretation, is open to evidence. But it still remains that blockchain solves a major part of any possible corruption aspect in transactions. It doesn't matter what it is. So we have all of these secure ways to work in the monetary industry, which of course is the one thing that everybody wants to be the most secure. But I would probably say that a good portion of our society would say they would want voting to be secure, even more so than their money. It's kind of crazy to say that, but considering the way that it is blown up as a way to change society, and the recent the recent discussion, I should say, around the hacking thing. This is a very important subject, and I'm glad that the Government Blockchain Association saw fit to have this discussion, and because I think that it really shows the power of blockchain at a very simple level. So, just to run through real quick, what is blockchain? For me, without using the chart, for me, it is a way to make the world incorruptible, immutable, inalterable. To make it as simple as possible, when you have blockchain, transactions, all aspects of a transaction or an event or publication or an action, all aspects of an action happen in real time and can never be changed from that point on. So, for example, in today's world, let's say you're using something like PayPal, even simple, or a credit card, and you're buying something, and you always look at your bank account and it shows pending. And ideally, and we've seen it happen, these transactions can change, they'll fall off, they might, the amounts might change, they might get duplicated. We've all experienced that. And the blockchain technology, what it does is it makes that all aspects of that single transaction from every possible input or the originator, because you have just like, for example, in a transaction, you have the bank, the credit card, yourself, the place that you're buying anything. All of those aspects are tied into blockchain. And when they happen, it is all, I don't know, what's the word, the right technological word, I don't know, but it is written down, it's ledgered, it is put into something that will never change. And as you can see in the PowerPoint, it adds a new block to an existing blockchain. So all of these little blocks that are there are essentially, if I understand it right, mind you, I'm not the greatest technical person, so if I get something wrong in that aspect, please go with the generalization that I'm doing, because we're talking about an action that happens and you can never change it again. This is what happened. It happened right in front of your eyes. And of course, it can be done private as well, but it does right in front of your eyes. It's not hackable. It can't be changed. And that's why it's the anti-corruption, anti-force aspect of our society. And we already have the information at the level that we want it. It's just that we don't have a way of recording it in our everyday lives where it can't be immutable, where it can't be inalterable, or it can't be can't be corrupted. Blockchain solves that. It's certainly one of the ways it solves that in a major way, and it'll change the world. So problems with voting. So it is a natural, you can do this in a number of aspects, but because of voting is so prominent and such a big deal, blockchain solves the voting problems that are bad. So you have problems with voting, you have fallible systems, old systems, accessibility. We're still seeing a ridiculous amount of lines in the year 2018 for voting. It's ridiculous. I mean, there's no other way to say it. That with the technology that we have before even blockchain, the technology that we have, and the money that we spend in elections alone, the fact that we don't have more places even for people to vote is just ludicrous. So this, again, when I say the anti-force, the anti-corruption, you think about all the voting problems, no matter what you think about them, there still is a discussion about it. Well, if you believe that there are no voting problems, wouldn't you like to have a way to prove that? If you believe that there are voting problems, wouldn't you like to see a way that could prove that? This is what we're talking about right here. Public mistrust, right? So you want to be able to prove the argument with immutable, incorruptible evidence. So from an accessibility standpoint, one of those issues, you see the long list, and we all know this. For the new voters, it's important that you read this list, of course. For voters my age and around my age and older, and the ones that we've been doing this, we know, I still have discussions with friends of mine that I've known 50 years where they say, I know I said my age, but 50 years, and we'll still have the same, that there's a lot of voter fraud, and then I'll say, well, no, there's not, but there is voter fraud, and I wouldn't care if it's 1%, a point of 1% or whatever. When you have something that takes care of the informational side of it, where it can't be corrupted, there doesn't need to be any percentages, actually. And what's wrong with that, right? They say that utopia is not possible. That's pretty utopian right there when it comes to anything, not just voting, but we're talking about voting. So you have the weak voter turnout. So for the last two major elections that were supposed to be so important in our society, in the United States, and other countries as well, but just in the United States, we have 200 million or so eligible voters. And we've had half of those voters, 100 million people in this society, not go and vote in the polls. I believe that the last election, which was higher than the previous one, was right around 110 million. So it gives you an idea. So, okay, so 90 million people didn't even want to bother with it. Well, blockchain and expanded technology solves that problem as well. So then we're eliminating this, well, you don't have the right to complain if you're not participating. Because a lot of people aren't participating because they're not trying to go 40 miles to go vote for something in our crazy world as it is. You know, they'd rather just listen to the news and make our lives silly because everybody wants to tell us how to think. So going through system failures, these are all important. I was looking at these earlier today. You know, and you look at the first one, Los Angeles County primary elections. Software resulted in nearly 120,000 voters being left off the printed voter rosters. How do you solve that? You know, I mean, it happened. It impacted 120,000 votes in a county election. I don't care how big the city is. That's relevant. It's relevant if it doesn't matter. 120,000 people didn't get to participate because of what? Because they didn't have a way to make sure that the technology existed to make this streamlined in a way in the year 2018 where people actually can have access to do something so simple as voting. 2016, a U.S. presidential election, the claims of we all know the stories. Jill Stein, a friend actually, sued for the recounts in a number of states, Illinois being one of them, and actually it should have happened. And you know, you have a situation here where you have people blame, well, you know, it was this party's involvement and the Russian and everything. Well, how would you like to be able to just say, you know what, the election was fine, here's the evidence. You know what, the election wasn't fine, here's the evidence. And let's fix it. We all remember, oh, well, some of you might not, you're a little younger, but we had an election. George Bush, Al Gore, he went to the Florida Supreme Court. There was voter roll involved, literally. They were doing counts. What would have happened if they would have had that on the blockchain? The Supreme Court would have gotten all the evidence right in front of them, and they could have made a proper legal decision. Not saying what they said was right or wrong, but the fact is that the data would allow them to do something right. As a matter of fact, I just see now in the bottom of this thing, it shows the U.S. presidential election, the Florida recounts. What I'm talking about, 2000, Al Gore, George Bush. It was crazy what happened. The fact that they still had to do that, we still don't know what happened, and we should, without a doubt. I mean, that's the reason why the incorruptible system, the anti-force, will fix so many things about the government. Here you have the mistrust of the system nationally. The DEF CON annual cybersecurity conference held in Las Vegas, voting machine hacking village demonstration. This is important. So you take 24 voter systems, different ones, 24 different ones, obviously, all used in the United States. We don't even have and because the states are allowed, which I'm on the side of, but we don't even have the same system. And even if you just do it like for federal elections, for example, this is a federal election, you don't have the same system. So this is even more important as far as incorruptibility is concerned. Because we all know from the technology side, hacking is a big deal. So in the United States, there's no federal right to public access to records in order to evaluate electoral outcome accuracy. Also ludicrous. And this is an intelligent way, you know, think about it for a second as far as writing laws and lobbying. So here we are, we're talking in the Government Blockchain Association. Obviously, we're going to be involved in policy. That's the whole point. Education policy. So we take this to the federal government and said, look, not only do we have the technology that's incorruptible, but now it makes it a lot easier to do public access to the information because ideally the government is supposed to be transparent, and this is the best way. This removes all of the arguments and lets it be known. Go more about that issue here. Do not publicly report detailed election data by vote, type, and location. You know, we get a lot of our information from what they call exit polls. You know, the news people sit outside and they ask people what did they do when they left. That's the world we're living in, more so than we are with the technology that we have. And if you think about it, and everybody in this room that's here listening to this is very smart, smarter than I am when it comes to technology. You know what this means. And it certainly solves so many problems. And because when you think about blockchain and you think about the list of these problems, how easy are they solved? It's almost laughable that they exist because blockchain exists, to me, in that sense. You know, we were talking about the voter fraud cases. Doesn't matter what the percentages are. These things are happening, and they shouldn't be, bottom line. And they don't have to be with blockchain technology. Basically, everything you have here that is negative would be zero. Why wouldn't it be? Every vote that was cast. If you say you cast the vote and everything's on blockchain, we're certainly going to be able to find you. So I mean, it's very, very easy to show. And then we also have the situation where they talk about dead people voting, and we talk about duplicate voting and people going to different places, all these things that are happening. It doesn't matter who you believe. The point is, of course, is that this technology solves the argument. We can be so many more productive things with our time. What can be done? Use blockchain, damn it. I can just move on. I don't have to go. I mean, really, but seriously, folks, but you go through it. Let's educational, having fun, but we always need security, of course. In anything, money, voting, anything. It really, if you think about it, from the standpoint of informational aspect and being incorruptible, we always need security and transparency in everything. Doesn't matter what it is. We shouldn't have levels. If you have an organization, a shipping company, Crowley, biggest shipping company in the United States, one of the biggest in the world, if not the biggest. So the information that they have, in order to ship anything in this country with Crowley or any shipping company, the detail that you have to give is immense. You gotta tell them how many mice turds there are inside the box when the mouse got in that broke into the corn in the box. You've got to tell them everything, weight, height, width, everything. So they're already taking that amount of information, and then they're sealing it. It's a very, very secure system, except when it comes to the ability to change the information after the fact. So why would that security for their shareholders be any less than the voting one, right? Because we're talking about the security of information. So blockchain solves it. And of course, voting being as prominent as in our society, we'll go with it. It's the most important thing in our society. Well, let's make it secure. Blockchain does that. Transparency, it does that. Mobile voting. We transfer trillions of dollars by our phones. Maybe not trillions, billions of dollars. With Bitcoin, with fiat. We do it every day, every second of every day. We can't vote? Of course we can vote. Of course it can be secure. Because people are trying to steal money a lot more than they're trying to steal votes, I promise you. And it don't happen. Well, it happens once in a while, but in insecure situations. But even with blockchain, even when somebody does get to steal something, the blockchain technology shows exactly what everybody's got, and they can always get it back. Cross-party trust, of course, we will always have that problem. They just won't be able to lie as easily, right? Blockchain has a solution. We're talking about it. I'll rehash some things, but again, blockchain is a very common sense approach. The information happens. It's recorded, can never be changed. Bottom line. Now, skeptics will say, well, of course it can be changed. And of course, I would say, well, of course there's a possibility it can be changed. That's how we got here in the first place. We have brilliant people with imaginations who have the skills to make sure that something is secure, create something new. But sometimes the sky is blue. It's never going to be any other color than blue. That's kind of what we're talking about here. We did, from the standpoint of security until it isn't secure, like anything else, we're pretty good here with the voting process. Same with things with transparency. That's the other thing that a lot of people need to, in my opinion, learn about this incorruptible system. Is that, like when they talk about the truth or the dangers of Bitcoin or the non-trust of Bitcoin, the fact remains is that these transactions are available, that you can track them. As long as you don't lose your passwords, it's like you don't use your wallet when you're walking around with fiat money, you're going to be fine. Fallibility. We're talking about something that can never be changed. Once it happens, it happens. Doesn't change. Give you a little analogy about that. One of the areas of blockchain that's being put out there heavily is copyright, trademark, things like that. So I'm a writer. So I write something on the blockchain. There's not going to be much of an argument in a copyright lawsuit of where this idea came from first, because mine would be first and it can never be changed. So think of it that way as far as the voting aspect. Once you vote, can't be changed. It's there, and it is your vote. And again, the mobile voting thing, obviously, some of these things are so obvious, but it really is important because we talked about 90 million people who didn't vote in the last presidential election. And, I've already seen in Georgia, for example, they talked about, I think it was yesterday or the day before, from early voting is the most significant amount of early voting votes tallied in any midterm election. For those who don't know what that means, it's the election. If you don't know what that means, you haven't been doing anything relative to life lately. You must have been on sabbatical in the Himalayas. So midterms, of course, is when there's no presidential election. So this is the turnout here has been massive in Georgia. And there have been recent claims by the Secretary of State, who happens to be running for governor, that there's problems with voter rolls that all, and mind you, blockchain can be dealt with from the standpoint of the voter rolls as well. Everything on blockchain to track it. If you have everybody registering at that level, right, on the blockchain, then you have, again, incorruptible information. When the person dies, they upload the death certificate, incorruptible information. That won't ever be used again. That person will be removed from the voter rolls. All of that stuff is going to be happening, and this is important. Then you take away the other aspects, the silly aspects of our society, no intimidation tactics. And that comes from everywhere. We've had this in, remember the 60s, you know, with the civil rights movement and being able to have black voting, which is actually, I mean, we're arguing about it in the 1960s, and they were, from the standpoint of our country correcting itself, that was fixed in 1860. And it took 100 years, and they're still not having voting because of the BS that goes on in our society. That we have to stop. We just have to stop that. Blockchain does so much of that. Now, my draw to blockchain, you know, there's a gentleman named Anthem Blanchard, Anthem Gold. He has a blockchain called Herc, a supply chain blockchain. I met him for the first time from the Atlanta blockchain community over in Puerto Rico doing disaster relief, and he really talked to me well about what blockchain is all about. Other people have. Randall right here in the GBA office. I love listening to him talk about blockchain. He's well versed, knows what he's talking about, understands it in a way that I appreciate. Makes it easy for me to just stay over in the legal side and talk about things. I don't have to worry about the technology side. All these smarter guys are better than me at it. But the information's out there, everybody. And transparency, again, you see the slide, all of these things we're talking about. And of course, the greatest thing for me, after the incorruptible, transparent, anti-force aspects of it, is the decentralized, empowering nature of blockchain and cryptocurrency, because it gives the power to the individual, which I'm a big fan of. You know, for those who worry about democracy and those words, the reason that this country works for me is that we're a republic. So the Constitution was actually, the constitutional protections were actually written for the single person. So this is why people can't vote away your protections. And they always say constitutional rights. It's not rights, it's protections. You have rights. And the Constitution protects your rights from being taken by the government or anybody else. And blockchain expands that. It protects the individual. It empowers the individual in ways that just haven't existed since they created those protections. Is it secure? The technical guys will tell you more so how it is from the nuts and bolts side. But yes, it's secure, bottom line, it's secure. Fully vetted. You can see logging votes onto blockchain makes the system immune to cyber attacks or tampering. Because again, logging in there, you cannot mess with it after the fact. You cannot mess with it. And all the information will be synced, particularly, especially when you start doing voter rolls and stuff on the blockchain as well. Why can't you? You can sign up for your bank on your phone. All those millions and billions of dollars that are signed up on your phone, I'm sure our voting can take care of that as well. Better than paper, of course. It doesn't burn, first of all. We'll just start there with that simple logic. But again, it can't be altered. It can't be burned. It can't be altered. It's going to be there forever, forever, forevermore. You know, when I mentioned the copyright thing earlier, let's say you have a writer who does that, 200 years from now, the blockchain will still exist and say, on that date, November 6th, Bobby Rodrigo did a PowerPoint presentation on the blockchain. He was the first one to do it on that day, and it's his, and there it is. And it can never be changed. That's what this is. I mean, that's what we're talking about. Biometrics, biometric identification, fingerprint, retina scan. Yes, retina scans do exist. It's not just on Star Trek and other places. So again, think about this from the standpoint of starting from the voter rolls. This is how somebody would sign up. Then in order to cast your vote, you'd have to sign in. And you have your keys. And for those of us who have cryptocurrency, we understand what that means, whether it's cold storage or whether it's tied to tech. And that's how you protect from that aspect, expanding on how secure it is. Is it viable in the real world? I think we've covered it pretty well when it comes to that. And here are some examples. Essential to securities deposit use blockchain-based voting for proxy voting for shareholders and representatives in countries including Argentina, Chile, Russia, South Africa, Switzerland, and the United Arab Emirates. So you have examples of this being used, and yes, they have to be secure. We're talking large companies with large amount of shareholders, and they need to make sure these things, and of course, handling a lot of money. And blockchain is already used in that aspect, so it works. Again, so you have use case. That's another, and we all, so it's, the other part of blockchain and crypto is use case and incentivification. So the incentive is obvious, hack-proof, immutable, incorruptible voting. So you've solved those two problems. West Virginia, overseas military personnel were able to vote in 2018 primary election on the blockchain system. Oh my God, where's West Virginia? I'm confused. Oh yes, United States of America. What's the problem, people? We have one of the 50 says, look, we did it and it worked. Of course, they don't say it out loud, so it's going to be up to us. It works. Zug, Switzerland implements blockchain as a pilot program. And again, you know, public service, if you are working for the people, you shouldn't have a problem with this at all, unless somebody can tell you that it's not safe, and nobody will be able to tell you that. Again, same thing, Estonia, online voting since 2005. Started to prevent election hacking by Russia. We all know the Estonia and the Russian situation, if you're paying attention to what goes on in the Eastern Bloc. And we're talking force where, you know, you have the military coming. Well, they still can't go back and change all the information of the things that's happening. Upgrading democracy in Australia. And Australia is, you know, I have to tell you, just in a lot of areas, Australia's government is looking for answers. They came up to Colorado. I was with a group of people that gave them a tour and talked to them about government policy relative to cannabis, for example. They're coming to this country and looking around the world for solutions to things that help their communities. And I'm not surprised that they're involved in this at all. And there are going to be other governments that are doing it, because there are a lot of people in this world in the government area that want to stop corruption because they've lived under it their whole lives. We're the only ones that don't, you know, that don't accept the fact that we also have, at least some of us. Decentralized democracy. Blockchain voting can change the very paradigm of how we interact with government. Great examples. Let's take a minute to look at that, and you can see the overlaps and the connections. You know, and I'll just chill for a second. Just take a look at that. So, South Carolina statewide blockchain integration is being launched. Another United States state that is doing that. So it's happening. It's happening quicker than people think, but it's happening too slow for my taste. I mean, it should have been implemented already here. You know, we know that the government is doing this, and of course, government loves to spend a lot of time on studies, but it's happening. And we don't ever hear about something negative about what's happening with this technology, which is also important. Nobody's, hey, look what happened in South Carolina, blockchain sucks. Doesn't happen. You don't hear that. Universal trust. Blockchain offers solutions to every complaint about the integrity of the 2016 election. Very true. I mean, I think that we've covered that aspect pretty well. I mean, it really is a circular thing. Everything about these sections is the same. Transparent, real-time transactions from every party, every direction, every aspect, every location, every reason of a transaction, wherever it is. All of it happens at the same time, in real time, and can't change from that fact. So you get everybody. And really, to combat Russian hacking, verify identities. What else are we talking about more so in this country than those two things? Same thing with recounts. Very simple. Boom. Can you hit a button? I mean, really. And it's done. I mentioned earlier about the recounts in Florida and the mess with the Gore Bush. That was a big deal. And it was crazy the way it was going on. And they didn't, of course, they never recounted just once. And it was crazy. Blockchain solves that. A secure decentralized medium allows for mobile voting solutions to develop. Again, you don't have to leave your house. I was talking to somebody earlier today who I've known since first grade, and she was telling me, yeah, a couple of my family members came over. We're going to have a voting party. And I had forgotten those things even existed. I've seen them 100. Think about that. Well, people can now have a voting party and vote right there at the same time. Maybe they'll be arguing a little bit more because somebody will see who voted for it, but oh well. How do I learn more? Well, I'm going to hand it over back to Randall. I hope everybody enjoyed the conversation. Randall will tell you how you can learn more, and if there's any questions after that, we'll take them.
Well, we can get into, this is more about the organization. We can get into questions and answers on, discussion on the blockchain and voting now. Also kind of like more in depth on what you were talking about, and then I can talk to them about GBA after that.
Great.
So, does anybody have some questions to start with? Not on GBA.
Okay.
On voting in the blockchain, on the topic. Yeah. Go back.
So could somebody go back and verify that their vote was recorded correctly by maybe using their password or passkey to look up what they put in?
Yeah, I would assume because it's all just everything's crazy.
Yeah.
So I think the important thing what I see here is identity. Once you crack the identity of securing the identity of the user, once you're able to see, yes, it is me who voted. You should be able to see your own record, and also the governance who is maintaining the voting system. They should be able to see also.
So they use your, I guess, public key or whatever you used to do.
Yeah.
Well,
You voted or?
Well, even now, just think of it like in cryptocurrency terms, right? So if you want to buy into an ICO or you want to buy into a company for a cryptocurrency, there's the KYC, know your customer, right? So it's the same thing here. It's like KYV, know your voter. So there would have to be some predetermined steps of regulation and verification before you can even be allowed to get into the voting process to register your vote.
If you're not a citizen, you can't even get on.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
So-
realize all that. I mean, it's a couple of things going on. One is maintaining your anonymity while being able to verify that, what's recorded is how you vote.
Right. So I mean,
Well, the thing about this too, I offer, is everything that's being discussed, for example, and that's probably going to happen with some of the questions, is already being done. I mentioned earlier about, like, for example, a shipping company, and the reason I did that was because the way that we get information at the level that we need for blockchain to do what it is that we're saying it does do, already exists. We just haven't uploaded it into the blockchain. So for the safeguards that you're talking about in being able to identify, think of it in a way where you're getting a wallet. I was doing it today with one of the companies. I was looking at one of the blockchain companies, and you have to identify yourself in order to be on there by law. And the companies that are in compliance follow it, and you've got to enter your information. The anonymous thing doesn't work. I offer another example. The state of Kansas refuses to allow candidates to take cryptocurrency as a donation. They're actually violating law, and the reason that they're doing that is because it's not up to the donor to be transparent. It's up to the receiver to be transparent. So all of that. So if you have a website that's taking donations, for example, you have to require that anybody who donates in any form, crypto, fiat, doesn't matter, you have to require that they put all their information in, and you have to have that software safeguard. So it's no different here with the voting thing. Whatever the rules are, or whatever the rules would be, we already know that it can be followed fairly easily because we experience it in other areas of our society all the time.
that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of features that you would want included in the system
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, I mean, so you'd have permission blockchain with very, very privileged access to be able to see kind of like those last steps of actual individual to the voting rights. And then after that would be probably more hybrid or public blockchain, right? To where it's all the encrypted code, which is just the hash pointers to each other, which trace all the way back.
So
to
then the public could take the public part of the chain and actually verify that the vote counts were correct.
Yeah. And then at the same time, you'll be able to see it in real time. And then there's also two other products that are actually in existence right now. One of them is a GBA member. They're out in California. It's called Voterfied. And they took the public voting registered database API and stuck it on the blockchain. And they're like, hey, use our product. There was a person running for governor. He didn't make it, but he said, hey, if I get elected to government or to governor, I will in real time represent your choices and your decisions based on this technology, which can be verified. And then there's one other one, I don't think it was in the presentation, but it's called Votum, which is like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, using people, like I think it was 1.6 million votes that it's been able to register. And then they're able to translate that into local jurisdictions. Some places like Sierra Leone, they're actually running pilot voting case studies in parallel, not really, they're just basically testing it. So they're running it in parallel to the traditional voting system and the blockchain voting system to see
Efficient.
and where there's maybe some stuff missing to where they can eventually go fully on the blockchain. So, yeah, and then
So they're piloting and then eventually they launch with blockchain.
I believe so, yeah. Like as long as they can prove that it's at least as good, if not better, then yeah, why wouldn't they pick the better
And
tool?
you should be able to vote from your phone.
Boom! I know!
Yeah, it's like
That's the most ridiculous thing.
Yeah.
And that
Absolutely.
being said as well, I'm just kind of wondering if this is also by any chance susceptible to say a 51% attack, whereby hey, you want to trust, hey, the votes really count or legitimate. I'm guessing if you have a bunch of bad actor nodes in there, that
But for that bad actor to actually compromise,
that's a couple.
you need to have power depending on what consensus a lot of them people use.
Right.
Obviously, proof of stake and proof of vote is also there that may be suitable for CFDs. So I think it's difficult to compromise unless you have a group of guys doing it still.
And that comes to the blockchain architecture decisions, right?
Yeah.
So you would insulate your votes to not be susceptible to the 51% attack, right? So it probably wouldn't be proof of work, consensus algorithm for that, because then that's just computing power that could overpower the votes. So
Oh, I get it. So you would have to be that computer power be some other entity.
right. So with the public blockchain, you basically just put those timestamps and the proof of existence that these things happen, and then you have right. And with hashing, you can hash hashes and hash hashes forever.
Right.
So, and then the proof of that hash is a proof that everything else is that it exists. So that's when you would just stick it on the public blockchain, just be like, boom, here's the timestamp. But you probably even put it on a few different public blockchains, just in case, God forbid, Bitcoin goes down. There's no way you're gonna knock down the top 3 or 5.
Once Bank of
public.
America stopped working, that one day.
Right, exactly. So then with, if you back it up on Bitcoin and Ethereum and somewhere else, there's no way that all 3 are going to go down at the same time. And then you can also timestamp verify across each other.
On that point, what are the pilots being built
Uh,
Luxoft. Luxoft is Bobby showed voting system that was deployed in Switzerland. Luxoft is the one that's the company that actually they are using Hyperledger Fabric and Hyperledger. ledger friendly permission blockchain work. There are 2 data centers in Switzerland, one in Ireland, fault tolerance. Ireland, I think Rodrigo conference. I think they will involve more fault tolerance.
Like most of the time, you'll have basically Ethereum, Hyperledger, and Corda. Those are the big 3 right now. So pretty much everything enterprise and government level is a combination of those 3.
Corda is more into the evolved from finance.
Yeah.
It's mostly tested to finance.
That came out R3. Is that about R3?
Yes. R3.
Sure.
Yep. And then I guess your competing bank, JP Morgan, got Quorum, but that's based off of Ethereum. So
Is that what their own cryptocurrency?
their own blockchain tech. Yeah.
It's interesting. JP Diamond still, they have their own blockchain. He still complains about Bitcoin.
Yo, he's like, Bitcoin ain't going anywhere. Then they have their ironic.
I love the stat where he was like, "Yeah, Bitcoin's is fraud," and then like literally, yeah,
Within next day.
soon there was 19,000 Bitcoins bought. Right. What price did we get in at?
Exactly.
Okay.
Jim Cramer saying, buy this. Jim Cramer.
I mean, so that's the whole future, right? It's like we should be able to, with security, not have to waste our time going to get these stickers and all this other crazy stuff. And there's this one story that I remember. There was one of the leading bankers in the world in London. It's actually Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, his podcast from like last year. They were like a year ago, at the beginning of the year, middle of the year, they were talking about cryptocurrencies and the future of banking. So they had one of the leading bankers of the world, London, talking about like what was going on in the future. It's like it clicked for me that the banks are going to be transformed, and he made a prediction that 90% of the physical bank branches in the next 10 years will be gone because his daughter's friend said, "Hey, Mr. X, can you help me open a bank account?" Right? And she was like 16. And he's like, "Yeah, but we have to wait until Monday, and then we have to go to this place, and you have to bring your ID and do this, and then we can open the bank account." She's like, "But why can't I just open it from my phone?" And then after that, it clicked in his head, like, the future with all the kids and the millennials and even whatever's after that.
They cannot fathom that they have to wait.
Yeah.
Get it right.
Yeah, exactly. So, those are some interesting thoughts for the future.
By next elections, do we have a voting system on the blockchain?
In the United States, I don't know. Other countries.
I think the political parties might have a little bit of an aversion to such.
Yeah, no, then it's not so
Democrats
easy
or
to.
Republicans won't matter.
It's not so easy to pay the Russian hackers to change the votes.
No, maybe
State by state experiments, though, I think.
Yeah, in places like Wyoming, they'll probably do it among the first since they got more cows than they got people. So,
Is that actually true?
Yeah.
it's true.
So in places with low population, low penetration, low density, it's going to be a lot easier to run these tests, right? Wyoming, Delaware, Vermont, places like this, they've even, what was it, West Virginia, some of them have already started doing small studies.
Delaware is doing they started in 2 years. They're putting down that's titles, blockchain.
Yeah, wow. And then this, the bigger you are, the longer it takes to adopt the new stuff, right? So
Because you have a lot of legacy records for that matter.
and that's the biggest thing is like you just already put in so much investment into this old thing,
Yeah, but you have to remember too that it's not only that is, when you come to things government-wise, there's agendas that, that doesn't, you don't have to like put an evil good side to it, but, and then you look at the media, they make a lot of money just on the argument, just on the divisiveness. Think of how much less money they make when you solve the problem and they've got to go find something else to argue about. I mean, it's really that fundamental right now. It's kind of crazy the hurdles that we have. Think about cannabis. It's a false narrative. It always has been, and yet we're still having the same argument. And literally, scientifically, it's a false argument. So you look at it. It's these little things that are in our society. Some of the arguments that we're having just have no validity on one side. Again, I mentioned earlier, the sky is blue. Ultimately, we'll finally get to that point. This is incorruptible. It's incorruptible. The cannabis doesn't kill anybody. It doesn't kill anybody. And there are other subjects, of course. And they make money on us just on the argument. A lot of people make a lot of money just on the argument alone. And since we have such a small percentage of society that's even working in the Bitcoin space, let alone the blockchain space, they get away with it. So there's a lot of interesting little hurdles that we have to deal with, unfortunately. They're not all just about education sometimes. We know that our government knows, we have examples in this presentation, that they know that this works. No one is saying to them that it doesn't anytime that they do this. We never hear any reports about it doesn't, and we would, just to continue the argument. So that's why, for me, it's so wonderful, because it's the anti-force, anti-corruptible. Corruption is needed for people of greed, for example. So
that's right. We can see a video now.
See you.
Well, that's my other computer. I wanted to let you know that I was serious about these drinks.
I believe you.
You can
Is that
see
Bloody Mary?
that's a Bloody Mary that had a lot of things in it that no longer exist, because I want to get. Yeah, it's like the joke about the fly. The fly fell into the thing, and the guy picks it up and tells him to spit it out. I want all of it. I gotta. Right? That's why there's no vegetables left. Can't miss a drop. She makes a very good drink, the lady that works for me in this space. So I'm in the underground home. So behind me, like any other mansion, is the guest house. Because your mansion has a guest house, doesn't it? Right? Everybody in the room, they have a guest house at their mansion, right?
My guest house has a guest house.
Exactly. So when you come to Las Vegas, this place where I'm sitting is a 15,000 square foot, $18 million mansion, and it is 30 feet underground. All of it.
What?
I am 30 feet underground.
I think I've seen that place in movies before.
It's I'm sitting in the yard outside the guest house, outside the main house, in the yard. That is 30 feet underground.
Can you put the camera? Show us.
Oh, I can. Well, I'm a little bit. Let's see what I can do here. So I have some stuff. So if you look down there, you'll see that there's the house. That's the sliding glass door to the master bedroom. There's his and her master bedrooms. I'm kind of closed in here because I kind of have this little work area. Over there is the female master bedroom. As you can see, I had an event here the other day, and I have step and repeat banners all over the place. I'm kind of working, but I can't take this because it's wired. But there's a pool and a waterfall over there, and this house, it was originally built by a gentleman named Henderson, him and his wife, in 1978 as a bunker for the Cold War. Because
that's what I figured.
And he had one here, and he had one in Colorado. And it was built in 1978, as I mentioned, and it cost $10 million to build at that time, to give you an idea about it. And I had a crypto cannabis charity album event here last Thursday. How'd that go? Good. It was good. We had about 120, 130 people come in.
Nice.
We had a panel. We had a person who's running for governor, Ryan Bundy. We had county commissioner candidate Cindy Lake. We had John Petrick from the cannabis community. We had Adrian Ashley from Crypto Vixens, and Loli. And we had I had an attorney whose name is escaping me because I'm on my second Bloody Mary. And we talked about the empowerment of blockchain and cryptocurrency and what it means in government, particularly because we had the candidate. And then after that, we had a cannabis discussion as well, because for those who know me, I'm trying to connect those dots for the obvious reasons of the banking issues that cannabis has because of the absurdity of Schedule 1 and banks can't allow for bank accounts because they can't federally insure them because it's a federal, still criminally, still a criminal act under federal law. So cryptocurrency solves that problem for the cannabis industry. So I'm trying to continue to do that bridge, just like we're trying to do it with the government. And then I'm launching a charity album. I know Randall knows a little bit about that. So we did that here, and I got 100 people signed in, 93 people signed in. So we had about 130, 140 people. It went really well. The World Crypto Conference, it was live streamed. You can check it. I live streamed it on my page, I Take Liberty with My Coffee, my Facebook page, and a whole bunch of others, including the Atlanta Blockchain, for example, Michael Tidwell's group. And take a look at it when you get a chance. But it was good. So if you're ever here, the crypto community here is robust.
Wait 1 second. Post those links on the comments of the meetup thing so we can find them.
Absolutely, I'll do that. I'll do that as soon as I got to get out of here. I have some people coming.
Okay.
But I really appreciate you asking me to do this. It's actually really my first technically solely blockchain presentation, and I like it. It was good subject matter. So
excellent. You got heads nodding of approval over here. So
right on. Thank you very much. Appreciate you letting me do that. And you guys, everybody, guys and gals, enjoy your evening, and I will talk to everybody soon.
All right. Thanks a lot, Bobby. Have a good night.
Thank you.